The woman in the wheelchair laughed when the little black boy stood before her and said, "I will heal you, but only if you give me your leftovers." Her laughter echoed across the courtyard, sharp, amused, a sound that said she did not believe him. Zion Carter, 7 years old, did not flinch. His eyes were steady, his hands folded around a small, broken toy car. Around them, patients watched curiously as sunlight shimmered off the hospital's glass walls. The woman smirked. "You think food can buy miracles?" Zion shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. But sometimes miracles start small." The laughter faded. For a moment, no one moved. Even the wind seemed to pause, carrying only the hum of wheelchairs and distant birds. What could a hungry child possibly do? And how could he change the life of a woman who thought she had already lost everything? Every morning, Zion Carter walked the cracked sidewalk outside St. Clair Rehabilitation Center, his small feet covered in worn shoes 2 sizes too big. The air smelled of rain and hospital soap, and the soft squeak of wheelchairs echoed through the courtyard. He carried his old plastic lunchbox, its superhero stickers faded from time. Inside there was no food, just a broken toy car and hope that today someone might share a meal. When nurses passed, he smiled and offered to push carts or fetch dropped napkins. "You are a good helper," one nurse said once. But most people just nodded and kept walking. By afternoon, the courtyard shimmered under the sun. The scent of roses drifted from the garden where patients sat in silence. Zion's stomach growled, but he did not complain. He hummed his mother's tune softly, the one she used to sing before she was gone. Then he saw her, the woman in the wheelchair with the diamond watch and the sad eyes that pretended not to care. Her name was Ms. Langford, once the owner of 3 restaurants, now a patient who barely spoke to anyone. When her meal tray rolled by, a piece of bread slipped to the ground. Zion bent to pick it up and placed it carefully back on her table. "You dropped this, ma'am," he said gently. She looked down, her voice cool. "Keep it. That is all it is worth now." Zion smiled faintly. "Then I will take it. But you have to let me give you something too." Her brow lifted. "And what could you possibly give me?" He looked up, eyes bright beneath the fading sunlight. "Maybe I can help you walk again." For the first time in a long while, Ms. Langford's laughter broke the quiet air, but it did not sound as confident as before. Zion returned to the courtyard every afternoon after that first meeting. Ms. Langford pretended not to notice him, but her eyes always drifted toward the boy with the broken toy car and the patient smile. One day he brought a small paper bag. "For you," he said. "Bread from the diner that throws it away at night." She frowned. "You do not have to feed me, child." Zion smiled. "Then feed me your story instead. Why do you not smile anymore?" For the first time, her sharp confidence cracked. "Because life took everything worth smiling for." Hope filled the air, fragile but real. Zion listened like a little doctor with no tools, only heart. He began showing up daily, talking to her, making her laugh with tiny jokes. Sometimes he placed her hand on his toy car and said, "If this wheel can move again, so can you." But the next week brought pain. When hospital staff saw him sitting beside her again, they scolded him. "You do not belong here, boy," one nurse said coldly. He lowered his head and clutched his toy. Ms. Langford said nothing. Not yet. That night, Zion sat by the gate, hungry and shaking. He whispered to himself, "Mama always said, help anyway." He remembered her last words. Even broken things can fix hearts. The next morning, he returned. His courage was small but solid. He found Ms. Langford struggling with her wheelchair. "You came back," she said quietly. He nodded. "You still need me." He began helping her stretch her arms, showing how to grip again. His laughter filled the empty garden. For a moment, hope felt real. But just as her hand began to twitch, a man shouted from the doorway, "Get away from her!" The hospital guard stomped closer, grabbing Zion's arm. Ms. Langford froze. The boy's toy car fell to the ground, spinning until it stopped at her feet. If you were there, would you have spoken up or stayed silent? Zion's eyes met hers one last time as the guard dragged him away. "I can help you," he said softly, tears mixing with dust. The courtyard went still, the smell of roses heavy in the air. Ms. Langford stared at the toy car, and at her trembling fingers that had just moved for the first time in years. Her breath caught. Something inside her shifted. And for the first time, she felt that the little boy's words were not just hope, they were truth waiting to be believed. Ms. Langford could not sleep that night. The echo of Zion's voice haunted her. "I can help you." His words were small, but they carried something she had forgotten: belief. The next morning, the courtyard felt emptier without him. The toy car still sat by her feet. She bent forward, her hands trembling, and for the first time in years her fingers closed around it. Her chest tightened. The movement was tiny, but it was real. She pressed the small toy to her heart, whispering, "Maybe miracles really do start small." Then she did something no one expected. She asked the staff to find the boy. Hours later, Zion returned, his face shy but smiling. "You came back," she said, her voice soft. He nodded. "You were not done healing." With his help, she practiced each day, small movements, quiet laughter, and soft prayers that filled the garden air. Nurses began to watch in disbelief as her strength returned, inch by inch. And one bright afternoon, as sunlight poured across the courtyard, Ms. Langford pushed her chair forward, and then, slowly, stood. Everyone froze. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she took her first step in years, her hand resting on Zion's small shoulder. The crowd of patients clapped. Some cried, but Zion only smiled, whispering, "I told you. You just needed to believe." Ms. Langford knelt and hugged him tightly. "You healed more than my legs, little one. Share this if you still believe kindness can change the world." The courtyard fell quiet again, the smell of roses drifting through warm air. Zion's laughter echoed softly, pure, free, and full of life. The sound of one heart reminding another how to live again. The next morning, the courtyard looked just as it always did, quiet, sunlit and wrapped in the scent of roses, but something was different. Ms. Langford stood without her wheelchair, hands resting lightly on Zion's shoulders as they both looked toward the open gate, where there had once been silence and pity. Now there was life. The hum of small laughter, the creak of her steps, and the sound of the toy car rolling again. Zion's eyes glowed with pride. "You did it," he whispered. Ms. Langford smiled. "No, we did. You reminded me how—" She looked down at him. This 7-year-old boy who had asked for nothing but leftovers, yet gave her back her freedom. Her voice softened. "You said you would heal me for food, but you fed my heart instead. The same breeze that once carried sorrow now carried warmth." The hospital staff watched from afar. No one spoke. The sight itself was enough to teach what words could not. As they stood there, the setting sun painted everything in gold, the same color as the hope Zion brought with him. Subscribe for more stories where silence turns into strength. And as the camera faded on the small boy and the woman who learned to walk again, one question lingered. How many miracles do we miss just because they come in small hands?